Look, all I'm saying is that maybe, just maybe, we shouldn't have taught the humans about quantum tunneling. First Science Officer Zixtel chittered nervously, their crystalline antenna vibrating with concern as they paced the length of the observation deck. Ambassador Krell rumbled, their massive gelatinous form rippling with what their species regarded as eye-rolling. They were going to figure it out eventually. Besides, what's the worst that could happen? The moment those words left Krell's speech membrane, every alien within earshot froze. In the vast expanse of space, in the corridors of power throughout the Galactic Council, and in the annals of history itself, there was one universal constant. Never ever ask what's the worst that could happen when humans were involved. The crystal form of Zixtel almost vibrated with existential dread. You didn't just say that. Please explain why you didn't just say that. It's just a figure of speech, Krell protested, though their gelatinous form had taken on a distinctly worried shade of mauve. A figurative language? Zixtel's voice rose to a pitch that made the nearby quantum glass windows resonate. Do you know nothing of human history? You haven't read the reports. Chaos has erupted each and every time that question has been asked among humans. I mean every single time. It's like some cosmic law. Krell began, surely you are exaggerating, but was abruptly interrupted by the blaring of alarms throughout the Earth observation station of the Galactic Council. A familiar blue-green planet appeared in the center of the room on a holographic display. The network of glimmering lines that were now crisscrossing Earth's surface and extending into the atmosphere like a starlight-spun web was, however, unusual. What in the name of the seven singularities is that? Krell screamed. A human voice crackled over the station's comm system, sounding entirely too cheerful for the circumstances. Hey there, Galactic Council. Dr. Amanda Thompson here from the Human Quantum Applications Division. Just wanted to give you a heads up about our latest project. Remember how you taught us about quantum tunneling? Well, we got thinking. What if we applied that on a macro scale? The question, what's the worst that could happen, came up. And, well, one thing led to another. The crystalline form of Zixtel sounded like hurricane wind chimes. What? Did, 040, February 25th, 2025, YouTuber, you. Do? Oh, nothing much, Doctor. Thompson replied with what everyone present recognized as the dangerous nonchalance unique to human scientists on the brink of either breakthrough or catastrophe. A global network for quantum transportation has just been established. You know how quantum particles can tunnel through barriers. Well, we figured out how to do that with, everything. Vehicles, people, buildings, and the like. We're calling it the Quantum Highway System, or QHS for short. Krell's gelatinous form had turned an alarming shade of puce from mauve. But that's impossible. The requirements for energy alone. That, oh. Doctor. Thompson laughed. Yeah, we solved that too. Turns out if you quantum tunnel the power plants themselves, you can create this neat little energy feedback loop. Totally safe. Probably. I mean, there's only a 0.001% chance of accidentally creating a cascade of quantum singularities that could turn Earth into a series of interconnected pocket universes. 041, February 25th, 2025, YouTuber, the observation deck erupted into chaos. Various alien species began either running in circles, freezing in terror, or attempting to contact their homeworlds to update their wills. Zixtel turned to Krell with an expression that somehow managed to convey, I told you so, despite their completely alien physiology. But wait, Doctor. Thompson continued, her voice bright with enthusiasm. That's not even the best part. Phase 2 planning has already begun. One person posed the question, what is the worst that could happen if we extend the network into space? And, no. The collective scream of every alien on the observation deck could probably have been heard in vacuum. Additionally, we are contemplating referring to it as the QITS, or Quantum Interstellar Transit System. Doesn't it have a nice sound to it, do you think? Of course, there are some minor technical details to work out, like the fact that we might accidentally connect every point in spacetime simultaneously. But honestly, what could possibly go wrong? Krell's form had begun to lose cohesion around the edges. Please stop saying that phrase. Oh, and speaking of phrases, Doctor. Thompson continued, you know how you tell us to think outside the box. Well, someone asked, what's the worst that could happen if we thought outside all the boxes simultaneously? So we've got this other project running parallel to QITS, where we're experimenting with quantum superposition of human consciousness across multiple dimensions. We're calling it Project Schrödinger's Species. Early results are interesting. Yesterday, one of our test subjects existed in a quantum superposition of being a theoretical physicist, a pizza delivery person, and a sentient cloud of probability waves. But don't worry, we've sorted most of them out. They just occasionally solve grand unified field theories while delivering surprisingly quantum entangled pizzas. By this point, several members of the Galactic Council had arrived on the observation deck, drawn by the commotion. High Counselor Vithrak, a being composed entirely of pure energy in bureaucratic anxiety, manifested in the center of the room. What seems to be the problem? Their face lit up with concern as Vithrak asked. Zixtel, who had been maintaining a running tally of potential apocalypses on their datapad, looked up. The humans are quantum tunneling everything. And they're about to extend it into space. Also, they're quantumly superpositing their consciousness across dimensions. Additionally, I've lost count of the number of alsos at this point. I see, Vithrak said, their energy form dimming slightly. And how did this happen? Krell bleated badly, still struggling to keep their shape. I asked what's the worst that could happen. The entire room fell silent. In utter disbelief at the scope of this error, even the alarm seemed to subside. You did what? Vithrak's voice could have frozen Asen. Did you learn nothing from the incident? Everyone present shuddered at the mention of the incident. Earth reckoned that another intelligent alien had asked that fatal question regarding human space exploration 50 years earlier. The resulting chain of events had led to humans discovering 17 new fundamental forces of nature, creating a coffee maker that could brew drinks from parallel universes, and accidentally teaching a black hole to sing show tunes. Please excuse me. Doctor. Again, Thompson's voice cracked through the communication. We'd like to inform you of yet another exciting development without interrupting your existential crisis. You see, a person recently inquired about the worst-case scenario for combining the QHS, QITS, and Project Schrödinger's Species. And well, the holographic display of Earth suddenly showed thousands of new quantum tunneling pathways, not just crossing the planet's surface, but weaving through dimensions, time, and what appeared to be several theoretical planes of existence that shouldn't have been accessible to three-dimensional beings. We may have accidentally created a network that connects not just all points in space, but all possible versions of humanity across every quantum timeline. We're calling it the Quantum Universal Human Network, or, well, you can figure out the acronym. Spontaneous evolution, brief omniscience, and an odd hankering for toast from other dimensions are potential side effects. High Counselor V. The energy form of Thrak moved quickly through a variety of distressing frequencies. This is precisely why we have protocols. This is exactly why that phrase is banned in all official documentation. This is... Oh, hey. Doctor. Thompson interrupted. Someone just asked, what's the worst that could happen if... Several council members began drafting emergency legislation to ban the phrase, what's the worst that could happen throughout all known space. Others were already planning to relocate to the most distant primitive galaxies they could find, preferably ones without quantum mechanics. Their crystalline form resonated with a mix of resignation and amusement as Zixtel turned to Krell. You know what the real irony is? This isn't even close to the worst thing that's happened after someone asked that question around humans. Remember the Great Pizza Incident of 2157? Krell shuddered, causing ripples throughout their gelatinous form. We agreed never to speak of that, the consequences of asking what's the worst that could happen regarding human cuisine. Zixtel thought that even though we had to sacrifice every third Tuesday to the sentient fungi, the peace treaty that came out of it was still interesting. The holographic display suddenly shifted, showing what appeared to be humans quantum tunneling through their own evolutionary timeline. Update. Doctor. It was almost as if Thompson's voice were getting excited. Someone just asked, what's the worst that could happen if we quantum tunnel through time? We're seeing some fascinating results. Did you know you can quantum entangle with your own ancestors? We're calling it Project Family Tree 2.0, though we may need to revise that name, as several test subjects have become quantum genealogically linked with future descendants who technically don't exist yet. Also, someone's great-great-grandmother is now simultaneously a Neanderthal and a post-human quantum consciousness from the year 3000. High Counselor Vithrak's energy form had begun to develop what looked suspiciously like a migraine, despite their species having neither brains nor the capacity for conventional headaches. How do you even measure the success rate of something like that? Oh, that's the neat part, Doctor. Thompson replied. We've developed a quantum uncertainty principle for success rates. Until someone sees the results, our projects now exist in a superposition of complete success and complete failure. We're succeeding and failing simultaneously across infinite quantum timelines. Schrödinger would be so proud. Or horrified. Or both, according to quantum mechanics. ZWXTL murmured, both. Certainly both. The display shifted again, now showing what appeared to be humans quantum tunneling through probability itself. Doctor. Thompson's voice returned, somehow managing to sound even more enthusiastic. Quick question. What's the worst that could happen if we... No. The collective scream of every alien on the station, including several species that hadn't evolved vocal cords, cut through the transmission. Quantum tunnel through statistical likelihood. Because someone just asked that, and now we've got people successfully attempting things that have a 0% chance of working. Yesterday, someone was able to divide by 0 wit. You know what the truly terrifying part is? This isn't even the most chaotic thing humans have done this week. Indeed, ZWXTL agreed. Remember Tuesday? Every other alien within earshot trembled. Tuesday had involved someone asking what's the worst that could happen regarding human music, leading to the creation of quantum harmonics that could restructure reality. The resulting genre, quantum jazz fusion, had caused several uninhabited planets to spontaneously transform into giant musical instruments. At least the concerts are interesting, Krell offered weakly, even if they do occasionally cause temporary violations of causality. Mathematical equations that appeared to actively defy the rules suddenly filled the holographic display. Oh, wonderful news. Doctor. The level of enthusiasm in Thompson's voice triggered the survival instincts of several alien species simultaneously. Someone just asked, what's the worst that could happen if we combined all our quantum projects? We're calling it Project Yes and. Early results suggest we've created a quantum feedback loop of infinite possibility. Around here, reality is becoming a little more fluid. Several humans could be seen quantum tunneling through pure probability, their forms shifting between various states of existence and non-existence, as if to demonstrate her point. One researcher appeared to be simultaneously winning a Nobel Prize, making a sandwich, and discovering that the universe was actually a simulation running on a quantum computer made of crystallized time. Despite being entirely composed of energy, High Counselor Vithrak's energy form had begun to develop what appeared to be actual physical stress lines. We have the 2156 revised Copenhagen Interpretation Treaty precisely because of this. Quantum probability waves should never be collapsed for the sake of it by any species. Oh, that brings it to mind. Doctor. Thompson's voice somehow managed to sound even more enthusiastic. We recently achieved yet another breakthrough. Someone inquired, if we quantum tunnel through the fourth wall, what is the worst that could happen? And now our researchers are becoming aware that they're characters in a story, but they're also quantum tunneling through different narrative genres. One of our physicists is simultaneously writing a research paper, starring in a romantic comedy, and experiencing an existential crisis in a postmodern novel. On the observation deck, the aliens looked at each other in pure, unadulterated horror. Several species simultaneously evolved the ability to facepalm despite having neither faces nor palms. You know what the really interesting part is? Zixtal pondered as their crystal form reflected light in patterns that seemed to convey both amusement and resignation. This isn't even the most meta thing humans have done. Remember the reality show incident of 2159? Krell shuddered so hard they temporarily lost molecular cohesion. When they literally turned reality. Someone may have inquired, what is the worst that could happen if we quantum tunnel through quantum tunneling itself, in another? Quick status update. Dr. Thompson chimed in. Project Inception, but quantum is going great. We've successfully created a quantum tunnel through the concept of quantum tunneling, which has led to some interesting recursive effects. Also, someone just asked, what's the worst that could happen if we quantum tunnel through the concept of questions itself? Depending on your philosophical stance, we are now receiving responses to questions we haven't even considered. This can be extremely effective or existentially terrifying. High Counselor Vithrak's newly evolved physical form had begun to develop actual facial expressions, starting with one that perfectly captured several million years of bureaucratic suffering. Please tell me they at least haven't figured out how to. New information. Dr. Thompson interrupted again. The question, what's the worst that could happen if we quantum tunnel through the idea of impossibility, came from a person recently. Now we're successfully doing things that can't be done, which is creating some fascinating paradoxes. If they hadn't quantum tunneled through the concept of days themselves, our logic department would be having a field day. The observation deck had become a study in various alien expressions of resignation. With the help of quantum mechanics and a perilous lack of common sense, humans could create a unique kind of chaos that several species had begun coining new linguistic terms to describe. You know what the really ironic part is? Zixtal said. They seemed to be laughing or having a panic attack as their crystal form vibrated. We could have prevented all of this if we just remembered the first rule of human interaction. Never give humans access to any technology more advanced than a potato, Krell suggested. No, the other first rule. Never ask them to think inside the box because they'll immediately try to quantum tunnel through it. No, the other first rule. Oh, Krell's gelatinous form rippled with realization. Never ever ask what's the worst that could happen around humans because they'll take it as a personal challenge. Exactly. Zixtal confirmed. It's like their entire species exists in a quantum superposition of hold my beer and watch this. The holographic display suddenly showed what appeared to be humans quantum tunneling through the very fabric of narrative causality. Update on Project Meta Quantum, Dr. Thompson announced. We've successfully quantum tunneled through the concept of stories themselves. Now, our researchers are both characters and authors in a superposition. Also, someone just asked, what's the worst that could happen if we quantum tunnel through the concept of endings? As a result, our projects will never truly finish. They just quantum tunnel into new beginnings. High Counselor Vithrax's newly developed face had achieved a level of exasperated expression previously thought impossible in this universe. So this is how it ends. With humans breaking reality itself because someone asked a simple question. Oh, things get better. Dr. Thompson continued jokingly. Someone just asked, what's the worst that could happen if we quantum tunnel through the concept of consequences? Now everything we do exists in a quantum superposition of having both every possible consequence and no consequences at all. We will refer to it as Schrödinger's duty. Collectively, the aliens on the observation deck realized that they had witnessed a beautiful and terrifying birth. Humans had somehow turned their inability to withstand a challenge into a force that had the power to alter reality itself. Their crystalline form finally settled into what appeared to be acceptance, Zixtel said. Perhaps this is precisely what the universe required. A species that is so obstinately chaotic that they are able to quantum tunnel through the idea of limitations. Are you suggesting we just let them continue? Krell asked. Their gelatinous form shifting through various shades of disbelief. What's the worst that could happen? Zixtel replied, then immediately realized their mistake. The entire observation deck froze in horror. Oh, Doctor. Thompson's voice crackled over the calm one final time. Someone just heard you ask that. And now they're wondering what's the worst that could happen if we combine alien crystalline quantum physics with human chaos theory. This is going to be so exciting. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, in the corridors of power throughout the Galactic Council, and in the annals of history itself, a new universal constant was added. Never inquire about the worst-case scenario. Around humans, because they will take it as a challenge, quantum tunnel through the concept of impossibility, and somehow turn it into a scientific breakthrough that simultaneously advances and terrifies all of civilization. 3 Standard Council weeks later, which thanks to Project Temporal Quantum Tunneling, was simultaneously yesterday and next month. An urgent meeting was called by the Emergency Response Committee of the Galactic Council. The agenda was simple, dealing with the aftermath of humanity's latest quantum adventures. Their newly evolved physical form now possessed what appeared to be stress-induced quantum gray hair, High Counselor Vithrak demanded in response to the status report. Admiral Pazorp, a being composed entirely of organized plasma and bureaucratic efficiency, cleared their electromagnetic throat. The good news is that the universe has not been destroyed by humanity. The bad news is that they've created several new ones by accident. How many? Vithrak asked, dreading the answer. Pazorp replied, their plasma form flickering with uncertainty, that's complicated. Thanks to Project Quantum Multiplication, the number exists in a superposition of being both finite and infinite. Also, someone asked, what's the worst that could happen if we quantum tunnel through the concept of numbers themselves? Now we're dealing with quantities that exist between 0 and 1, but also simultaneously before 0 and after infinity. Vithrak was unable to process this information until Doctor through the quantum entangled communication system, Thompson's now familiar voice made an appearance. Oh, hey everyone. Quick update on Project Number Theory, but make it quantum. We've successfully created new numbers that exist in the spaces between existing numbers, but also in the spaces between those spaces. We're calling them quantum decimals. Also, someone just asked, what's the worst that could happen if we quantum tunnel through the concept of logic itself? The entire committee froze in horror. Don't worry, though, Doctor. Thompson continued cheerfully. We've got it under control, mostly. We might have unintentionally developed a method of reasoning that is both valid and invalid, true and false, logical and illogical at the same time. We're calling it quantum logic, though marketing suggests we rebrand it as Schrödinger's syllogism. Their crystalline appendage was raised by Zixtel, the Council's official human chaos translator. Actually, this might explain some of the strange reports we've been getting. Like the one about humans successfully proving that 1 + 1 equals both 2 and fish. Oh, you were aware of that? Doctor. Thompson seemed thrilled. Project Mathematical Freedom only had a side effect like that. Someone inquired, if we quantum tunnel through the foundations of mathematics, what is the worst that could happen? Now we can do calculations that aren't just wrong, but fundamentally impossible. Yesterday, one of our researchers divided by 0 so hard they created a new branch of mathematics based entirely on theoretical operations that can't exist. Admiral P. From stress, Zorp's plasma form had begun to produce solid matter, a transformation that defied several physics laws. But at this point, nobody was keeping track anymore. However, how is success measured in a mathematical discipline that cannot exist? That's the neat part, Doctor. Thomson replied. Through the idea of measurement itself, we quantum tunneled. Now we can measure things that don't have measurements, quantify the unquantifiable, and calculate the incalculable. We're calling it quantum metrics, though personally, I prefer Heisenberg's ruler. We might have unintentionally developed a method of reasoning that is both valid and invalid, true and false, logical and illogical at the same time. We're calling it quantum logic, though marketing suggests we rebrand it as Schrödinger's syllogism. Their crystalline appendage was raised by Zixtel, the Council's official human chaos translator. Actually, this might explain some of the strange reports we've been getting. Like the one about humans successfully proving that 1 + 1 equals both 2 and fish. Oh, you were aware of that? Doctor. Thomson seemed thrilled. Project Mathematical Freedom only had a side effect like that. Someone inquired, if we quantum tunnel through the foundations of mathematics, what is the worst that could happen? Now we can do calculations that aren't just wrong, but fundamentally impossible. Yesterday, one of our researchers divided by zero so hard they created a new branch of mathematics based entirely on theoretical operations that can't exist. Admiral P. From stress, Zorp's plasma form had begun to produce solid matter, a transformation that defied several physics laws. But at this point, nobody was keeping track anymore. However, how is success measured in a mathematical discipline that cannot exist? That's the neat part, Doctor. Thomson replied. Through the idea of measurement itself, we quantum tunneled. Now we can measure things that don't have measurements, quantify the unquantifiable, and calculate the incalculable. We're calling it quantum metrics, though personally, I prefer Heisenberg's ruler. As various alien species attempted to comprehend the implications of humans violating not only physics but also the very concepts that underlie reality, the committee room broke into chaos. Oh, and speaking of breaking things, Doctor. Thomson added, someone just asked, what's the worst that could happen if we quantum tunnel through the concept of questions itself? Now we're getting answers to questions that not only haven't been asked yet, but can't be asked because they exist in a quantum superposition of being both questions and not questions. Vithrak's newly evolved face had achieved a level of done with this previously thought impossible in any dimension. Please tell me they at least haven't. Breaking news, Doctor. Thomson interrupted. Someone recently posed the question, what's the worst that could happen if we quantum tunnel through the idea of limits? Now we can exceed limits that don't exist, break rules that haven't been written, and achieve impossible things that can't be achieved. Despite legal advice to change the name to quantum hubris, we are going to call it Project No Bounds. Zixtel's crystalline form had begun to develop what appeared to be a quantum uncertainty principle for headaches. What is the truly fascinating part, you ask? Not even the most absurd thing humans have done in this hour is this. Admiral Payzorp, in fact, concurred. Remember what happened 20 minutes ago, when someone asked, what's the worst that could happen if we quantum tunnel through the concept of time itself? The committee as a whole trembled. That particular incident had resulted in humans creating a temporal paradox so complex that it existed in a quantum superposition of having already happened, never happening, and happening sideways through dimensions that shouldn't exist. Actually, funny you should mention time, Doctor. Thomson made a comment. In temporal quantum mechanics, we've made some exciting advances. Turns out, if you quantum tunnel through the concept of causality itself, you can create effects that precede their causes, causes that follow their effects, and events that are simultaneously their own cause and effect. We're calling it Project Bootstrap, though philosophy department suggests, temporal pretzel. The committee room had become a study in various alien expressions of existential crisis. Several species had evolved new organs specifically to help them cope with the concept of humans breaking reality in ways that shouldn't be possible even in theory. But wait, Doctor. As she went on, Thomson's enthusiasm grew to new heights, activating simultaneously the survival instincts of several alien species. Even that isn't the best part. Someone just asked, what's the worst that could happen if we quantum tunnel through the concept of possibility itself? Now we are able to do things that are not only impossible but also fundamentally impossible to exist within any reality framework. We're calling it Project Beyond, though marketing suggests, quantum oops, all paradoxes. Quantum uncertainty-related physical symptoms had begun to appear in Thrax's newly evolved physical form. This is the end. This is how reality ends. Not with a bang, but with humans asking what's the worst that could happen, until they break the very concept of existence itself. Oh, that reminds me, Dr. Thompson exclaimed. The question, what's the worst that could happen if we quantum tunnel through the idea of existence, was recently posed. Because they are in a state of being and not being, the outcomes are, well, we don't quite know how to describe them. We're calling it Project Philosophical Zombie, though Metaphysics Department insists on quantum, therefore I am, or am I. And so, in the grand tradition of human scientific endeavors, reality itself had been forced to adapt to humanity's unique combination of curiosity, chaos, and complete disregard for the impossible. In the end, the Galactic Council established a brand new department that was solely tasked with handling the aftermath of humans asking, what's the worst that could happen? Though thanks to quantum tunneling through bureaucracy, the department existed in a superposition of being both incredibly efficient and totally useless. As for Dr. Thompson and her team, well, someone eventually asked, what's the worst that could happen if we quantum tunnel through the concept of stories themselves? This story now exists in a quantum superposition of fiction and reality, beginning and end, possible and improbable, but that's a different story. Or is it? Someone just asked, what's the worst that could happen if we quantum tunnel through the concept of storytelling itself? And now narrative causality exists in a state of quantum uncertainty. To be continued. Or not. Or both. Or neither. 051, February 25, 2025, YouTuber, Quantum Superposition Applies. Me, Dr. Thompson chimed in. The question, what is the worst that could happen if we uncollapse all the quantum probability waves that have ever collapsed, was brought up by someone. We're thinking of calling it Project Reset Button. Don't worry though, there's only a slight chance of retroactively unmaking the Big Bang. The observation deck fell into a silence so profound it seemed to bend spacetime. Even the quantum fluctuations in the vacuum of space appeared to be holding their breath. Zixtel finally spoke, their crystal form resonating with something that could have been horror or admiration. What do you know? In fact, I'm impressed. This isn't just regular human chaos. 052, February 25, 2025, YouTuber, this is advanced human chaos. They've somehow quantized chaos itself. To put it simply, Dr. Thompson interjected, we prefer the term chaos optimization through quantum uncertainty maximization. Though someone did just ask, what's the worst that could happen if we applied that principle to bureaucracy? We're calling it Project Quantum Administration. Early results suggest we can now file paperwork that simultaneously exists in all possible states of completion and rejection. High Counselor Thrax energy form brightened suddenly. That last one actually doesn't sound too bad. Could you send us the details of no? All of the other aliens on the deck shouted at the same time. Right. 057, February 25, 2025, YouTuber, Thrax form dimmed again. I apologize, got a little carried away there. At once, what appeared to be a human quantum tunneling through pure bureaucracy appeared on the holographic display. Existing in a superposition of being both completely in compliance with all regulations while simultaneously breaking every rule ever written. Update on Project Quantum Administration, Dr. Thompson announced. We've successfully created a form that can be filled out in negative time, meaning it's completed before you even know you need it. Also, we've quantum entangled all possible interpretations of the fine print, so every contract is now simultaneously ironclad and completely non-binding. With this, legal is having a field day. Or, they will. Or they were already. Quantum tense agreement is getting a bit tricky around here. Krell's gelatinous form had begun to develop actual structural integrity from stress, a phenomenon previously thought impossible for their species. 057, February 25, 2025, YouTuber, please tell me they're at least going to stop soon. With the resigned wisdom of someone who had spent far too much time studying human history, Zixtel replied, no, absolutely not. Someone's probably already asked, what's the worst that could happen if we don't stop? Doctor, as if on cue, Thompson's voice returned. It's funny that you mentioned that. Someone did just ask that exact question, and we've made some exciting breakthroughs in quantum perpetual motion. It turns out that you can quantum tunnel through the idea of endings itself to continue on forever. We're calling it Project Infinite Loop. Though we should probably workshop that name, as it's causing some interesting temporal side effects. Yesterday is now happening tomorrow, which is technically last week. The observation deck had become a study in various alien expressions of despair. New organs had been developed specifically to help a number of species cope.